How's it going, everyone? This is JC and I'm back with another Project Cars 3 video. In today's video, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the gameplay that we've seen that just recently surfaced, as well as some of the news surrounding Slightly Mad Studios and Codemasters and the approach that they're taking with the new released Project Cars 3 and what it could potentially turn into. Real quick before we get started, I'd like to give credit where credit is due. All of the gameplay that you are seeing in this video was provided by Ogonoski, PlayStation Europe, GameRiot, and Brosh Racing. I will have links in the description below linking all of their videos. If you like the content and you are enjoying it, please drop a like and subscribe for more content, as it really does help me out. And with further ado, let's get into it. First up, I'd like to talk about gameplay. So, the general consensus for the gameplay has been that this game looks entirely arcadish or arcadey, and I have to say that I agree with this. I mean, I don't really see the sim aspect like we've seen before in Project Cars 1 or Project Cars 2. At first, I was cautiously optimistic, until I actually started looking around for more gameplay footage. And be careful what you wish for, because once I finally found more gameplay of this game, I know it's early beta footage, but I gotta tell you, it reminds me more of a Need for Speed Shift or the Grid, or something on even Need for Speed Heat during the daytime racing. That's what it kind of reminds me of here. The UI is very dynamic, it's busy, got a lot of things popping up at you all at one time. If you got like a clean line and all this other stuff, you can see that there are a bunch of assists engaged, and it's very obvious that the player is controlling the car with a controller. Don't get me wrong, the controller aspect of it, okay, I'm always open for it to be a little bit better. Project Cars 1 controller scheme was awful, and I actually talk about this a little bit in a previous video that I've done when we talked about the key features of Project Cars 3, and we talked about the controller. And Project Cars 2 actually made a step up where the cars were actually controllable, but still weren't ideal, for a sim. You really want to have a steering wheel that's compatible for the game. But to the opposite side of the spectrum, for players who don't have access to a wheel, this I think is a good step. I just think that the assists seem to overcompensate and make the game look and feel so much more arcadey than what it should be. And the same thing with the tire sounds. The tire sounds sound okay. They sound pretty good, but the audio, just in general, when it comes to the sounds of the vehicles, they just don't sound as authentic. And we can listen to that here.
Final lap, final lap. Try and take that position.
In my opinion, they sound really muffled compared to what they were in Project Cars 1 and Project Cars 2. And they sound really generic, like there's just a template for a specific vehicle, and it's just kind of carried through. You don't really get the guttural sounds of the transmission and the engine and the exhaust like you did with Project Cars 1 or 2. Especially it's very smooth here. Whereas in the original 2, the prior 2, you got more of that raw, unfiltered sound, and that feeling that that the true excitement from that feeling. Here, it just kind of feels like any other racing game. That it kind of feels soulless to me. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh, but the Project Cars franchise should have remained more of a simulation versus an arcade racing game. In regards to the tire model and the handling model, from what I can see, the game is very drifty. And once again, I did another video on this one as well when we had the no assist full sim gameplay. Even with the assist turned off, the game just did not have the feel or the sensation of a sim racer, in my opinion. In that video, I stated that it looked as though the driver was intentionally making the car drift. But even with all of the assists turned off, if the game is built as a arcadey drift simulator, so to speak. Even if you turn the assist off, I don't know if that's going to make the game more realistic or if it's just going to make it even more drifty. I mean, even with, let's just use an example like Need for Speed Heat. That game is largely based on how well you can drift around corners. Even if you set your build for your vehicle to be more of a grippy track type of vehicle, you still had to learn how to drift around corners in order to maintain your speed. And you could take off all of the assists that you need, you know, traction control, ABS, even taking those types of assists off, the game, it didn't feel more realistic. It just made the car more loose. That's all it really did. I'm kind of getting the same sensation here. On top of that, we have this blur effect that's in full swing or a little too much, and it gives a false sense of speed. It kind of makes the car look and feel as though it's going faster than what it really is, and it throws me off. And it doesn't give me that same feeling of immersion that was present in Project Cars 1 or Project Cars 2, or in some of the more comparable sim racers like Assetto Corsa or iRacing or Automobilista 2. I'm a little apprehensive about the gameplay, and I'm still hopeful that maybe it's just because this is all early beta footage that maybe it's going to get better. But from what I'm seeing, I'm not too excited. Not as excited as I originally was when I saw the trailer, but we'll see. You know, I want to stay optimistic, and you know, you never really know how a game is actually going to perform until you play it for yourself. Beta footage could be subject to change, so we'll have to wait and see. One of my other concerns about this, we talked about this in the key features, is with the controller model. When it comes to online racing, this invites other players who are not sim enthusiasts to participate online, and I think you're going to end up with a mixed bag of players who play with a controller and those who play in a full race rig. And I feel as though this will dampen the experience of those who actually race in a race rig and want that full racing experience compared to someone who has a controller. Players who tend to have controllers with sim racers, it's hard to explain, but you can't really control or feel the car in the same way that you can with a steering wheel. And having those two mixed together, you're going to have potentially closer racing action, and you're actually going to have more people who are very experienced and very serious about racing mixed with those who are not so serious and just want to have a good time. And that does not bode well for an online experience. I'm very hopeful that Slightly Mad Studios will incorporate some sort of filter to ensure that these two types of players won't get mixed together, or if there's an option to filter that out to say, hey, I only want to race other players that have a racing wheel. I only want to race players who have a controller. But we'll see. I also want to take a quick second to talk about the AI. From the gameplay that we see here, the AI is very tight, very close. It's very reminiscent of an arcade style racing game where there's really no strategy to the AI. It's just more so just like, hey, clump together so that we can be in the way of the player. Not so much a strategy similar to any other racing sim where the AI will actually put pressure on you in a way where it's not causing contact, or they're just not piling up in front of you or piling up behind you or just ramming into you, or it was more of a strategic type of pressure, and the AI actually were aware of proximity to you. I'm not seeing that here with Project Cars 3 right now in this beta footage. I'm seeing all of these cars just kind of bunched together. Yeah, and it just causes more of a roadblock for the player versus an actual opportunity for the player to really think about their next move, to think about, okay, where's my braking zone? Where's my actual pass zone? Should I draft? Do I need to watch out for the guy behind me? Should I undercut this person in the next corner, or whatever the case may be? I feel that element is gone just by looking at how these cars are behaving, and that's a bit concerning for me because that element of the gameplay against the AI is one of the things that enhance the experience for me and a bunch of other players. I feel as though if they do not do something about the AI in this regard, I think that they're going to lose a large portion of their sim racing market and trade it for a market of people who will play the game for about 2 weeks or so and then put it on their shelf and never play it again because it's just a quick arcade racer that just looks good and it sounds okay. Sim racers, we are a niche market. And with that, we are very particular and we like things to be a certain type of way. I understand that. And sometimes as a studio, it can be hard to appeal to a niche market. So I understand the challenge there. However, we sim racers are a loyal, dedicated fan base. And as soon as you disrupt that, it's hard to win us back because of the fact that we are so particular, because of the fact that we have others that come in who really don't truly appreciate the experience that we are looking for, but more so just want to have a good experience and just say that they can play the game. I don't know. That's just me. Call me a little bit of elitist. I'm sorry. I'm just a true racing fan. I love racing for the sake of racing. The last thing I want to talk about in the gameplay topic is the damage model. So, yeah. In the key features video that I posted, we saw that there's going to be a new damage model. So far, looking at the gameplay here, we have the Mercedes-Benz SLS AMG. I'm not really seeing where there's damage. I mean, we see lots of bumping, lots of collisions, a lot of close racing, but the only damage we actually see are the rear wings falling off of these vehicles, which lets me know that this damage model doesn't really take into account which zones are actually taking damage. So the front end of the Mercedes is definitely lower than the back end of the rear wing. So when there's a bump or collision from behind, I'm not understanding why the entire rear wing and the rails for the rear wing fall off the top of the trunk. And on top of that, I'm not seeing any type of dents or scratches or anything that looks like it could hinder the performance of your vehicle. It's just more like, okay, you bumped each other, your rear wing fell off, you can still achieve all of the speeds and the downforces that you can achieve with the wing. This is worrisome for me, and I just really hope that Slightly Mad Studios has a little bit more up their sleeve with this. Maybe, and perhaps I'm overanalyzing this, maybe this is a light version of the damage model. I know that in Project Cars 1 and Project Cars 2, you can customize your damage model. Well, you can select how intense you want the damage to be, whether you can go full damage, full realistic, or you can go light, or you can just go cosmetic, you can go mechanical. And maybe that's something that we're seeing here. It's just with this initial footage, it's just a bit alarming to see that. Who knows? This is one of the things we have to wait and see. But just looking at this initial gameplay, it definitely has me worried. So there are a lot of speculations going around right now in terms of why Slightly Mad Studios decided to take this route with Project Cars 3. A lot of sources are saying that it has something to do with acquisition of Slightly Mad Studios by Codemasters, and maybe that they are putting a big influence on Slightly Mad Studios to make something with a broader appeal versus the niche market of sim racing. From a business standpoint, I understand wanting to broaden your market, and I think that is a good move. However, I think that if there's a brand that's already established to be in the sim racing niche, that particular brand should remain in that niche. And of course, I'm referring to Project Cars. The brand of Project Cars started off as a community assisted racing simulator. And that's what CARS stands for. Project Cars, Project Community Assisted Racing Simulator. Right now, to me, it seems more like Project Codemasters. As in, we stepped in, we acquired the company, and we want to take this particular brand in a new direction. So we're funding the brand, and this is what it's going to be. Of course, I was speaking from Codemasters' perspective right there, what I speculated to be. I think that if they wanted to go that approach, that maybe Slightly Mad Studios and Codemasters could have worked together to develop a new title that is the best of both worlds like this. And at that point, I think that there would be a lot less confusion and a lot less angry sim racing fans from Project Cars. And they could have kept Project Cars as the home of the sim racing and just improved upon that experience for those who are dedicated sim racing fans. Now, recently, of course, Automobilista 2 has come out, and it runs on the Madness engine just like Project Cars 2 does, as well as Project Cars, the original. It has been getting lots and lots of praises and lots of accolades and a lot of comparisons to Project Cars 2. And I don't know exactly what's going on with this one. I have to do a little bit more research in terms of with the acquisition of Slightly Mad Studios to Codemasters, if this was part of the plan to have Automobilista be the home of where all of the sim racers go for their sim fix, and Project Cars to become the new brand or to rebrand itself. Either way, it would have been nice to have more of an official statement to say, hey, this is the route that we want to go with this franchise, versus just kind of springing it out on the fans and surprising us. Project Cars 3 is looking to be more of a competition for Forza Horizon versus being competition for Assetto Corsa or iRacing and the like. If they continue on this path, I see a lot of Project Cars 2 fans making a shift over to Automobilista 2, especially once Automobilista 2 is ported over to console. So I have a few suggestions just to follow up, and it's a little bit late for this, seeing that Project Cars 3 is set to release in summer of 2020 and we are already in June of 2020. I just think that Slightly Mad Studios and Codemasters should have gone the route of following a model similar to Assetto Corsa, where you have the base game and periodically they release new content, new cars, new tracks, new liveries, new updates and patches, and even mods. That way you can continue to appeal to the sim enthusiast and then have a new franchise that runs on a Madness engine or whichever engine they decide to choose or develop that follows what we see here in Project Cars 3 so far. And they could have changed the name to something different. Instead of having Project Cars, do like Project Racer or something along those lines, just something different, versus having the Project Cars brand or franchise make this about face, so to speak, just to try to appeal to more players in the market. I'm not sure if that was a good move for Slightly Mad Studios and Codemasters. Anyway, guys, that about wraps it up for this one. Let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know some of your thoughts, some of your feelings about this. What are some suggestions you all have for Project Cars 3? Do you think that they should have created an entirely new title and franchise, or do you like where Project Cars 3 is going? And I'd like to hear from you. So be sure to drop a comment in the comment section, and let's continue this conversation. Until then, stay safe and take care.